Good evening and welcome students to CERT-In session on Zero to Hero on Assembly Language, the language of Cyber Defender, Day 1, taught by Cybervidyapeeth Foundation. A lot of you may be asking yourselves this question: what is assembly language? Or why do I need to study it? Or why, so many different entities and organizations and experts are talking about it as the language for the future cyber defender? The answer is truly on multiple levels, and to understand this is one of just a few reasons you need to go on this journey with us. This is a 5-day journey, and during these 5 days, we will take you through intensive, roughly 4 hours every single day of training, which will be both hands on and theoretical in nature to open your eyes to the knowledge that is beyond high level languages such as Python, Java, C++, or even the C programming language. I cordially invite everyone who can hear me right now from every part of the world to join us in this journey and to be the future of the country and the world. We will start at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time sharp. Hope to see you there.
Uh, Good evening, everybody, and it's a pleasure to welcome each one of you from Cybervidyapeeth and CERT-in on assembly programming and way to cyber defender. This program has been, has been muddled over last 3 to 4 month time, and when we come out with the syllabus, we know that what we are aiming for. This program, has been registered by more than 3,800 people. I'm very confident that those who have joined the course, they are going to immensely get benefited to make a journey in cyber defense career. So welcome to each one of you, and let's spend 10 minutes time on the concept, why assembly, and who we are, what we do, and how we benefit individuals across the country. So I'm your host today. I'm Balaji Venkateshwar. I've got 25 years experience in cyber offense and defense, and quite a bit of work, around 9 patent granted with State Bank, then Wipro, Qualcomm. Very cherished journey of 35 years in cyber defense. I've got quite a bit of work I did in the space of both and defense. Years, age of 50 in a break, and whatever little I knew, we created an entity, and we are working together to create a. So the world is full of complexity, and the complexity is to the current Ukraine crisis. It's all about cyber war, information war, and cognitive war. A combination of the three really make the entire war different war. Cognitive war is the how to change the behavior of individuals, of countrymen, to get subservient citizens, so that the foreign entity can take control of the country by putting their own people. Information warfare is all about giving a poison information and trying to derail the entire, build a narrative which goes against the government and sometimes goes in favor of the government, those who actually manipulate the mind of millions. Social media is one of the finest tools for both cognitive and the information. Third one is the most critical one, which is in cyber warfare. And cyber warfare is something far critical than all the three that we have seen so far. And I can tell you that, when I was trying to dissect along with some of my teammates in Cybervidyapeeth Foundation, we realized that, this attacks are complex, and complexity is too much. And more than around 20,000 plus paper we have, downloaded from internet related to a various type of attacks that is being carried out by multiple countries or multiple threats against Russia or against rest of the world, or maybe who is fighting whom. It's very difficult to find it out. It's very difficult to do the attribution, but I can tell you this is complexity is far too much. And if you look into I just switched off the camera just to make sure that I'm is audible. And this is where the entire game plans begins. Significant attacks now the new generation warfare is capable of destroying the system, even burn systems remotely. And so there is a significant amount of world work that is required to be seen. And if you look into the dimension of cyber warfare, you will realize that there is something much more than not much than beyond the capability of any people, unless they develop significant skills. What need today around 31 million cyber engineers. The journey is can create such sort of and this is where the cyber defense becomes a much big to play around with. So warfare look to the armed forces, today warfare is beyond armed forces. It's invisible enemy.
Students, am I audible to all of you clearly? Students, am I audible to all of you clearly? If yes, please type in the chat yes. Okay, so yeah, I just tested it on my end. My voice should be pretty clear to all of you. We apologize. Yeah, I apologize, for Balaji sir's end. It looks like the network on his end just crashed. Could be weather, unforeseen circumstances. We can't really help it. He's no longer with us. Not a big deal. I'll quickly go through what the points he was trying to make, and then we'll go ahead with the class. Okay. So as he was talking about, the world has changed. We have now gone into a tri-warfare strategy where people, the cyber warfare has now transitioned into cyber physical warfare, and things like cognitive warfare, information warfare are real things that are occurring day by day. So a simple example of cognitive warfare could be something like suggestive warfare, right? You suggesting somebody that this thing, product A, is better than product B. For example, brands do this all the time. You will see Colgate, for example, making an ad saying, "Hey, we are the best toothpaste there is to use," right? That is also part of suggestive warfare, right? In business. So there are many kinds of warfare strategies that are used, and you have to, be able to identify and adapt to the situation you are put in. So that is extremely important. And there's also something that we need to understand is that, over the years, cyber security, as it's called, information security, data security, all these terms have really transitioned, and now they've become what we like to call as cyber defense engineering. In 2022, this is the need of the hour, which means that, no longer we have time to spend money on tools. If you are investing in tools and you have not taught or trained or created the people who can make those tools on demand and improve those tools on demand, then you are not going to have a cyber resilient workforce. And that is our goal here at Cyber Vidyapeeth. We wish to create a cyber resilient Bharat and a cyber resilient workforce, so that, truly the future of our country can be safe and sound. Few points before we go ahead with the class. Uh, Whatever you learn here, that cannot be plagiarized, in the sense that you cannot just copy paste, take our diagrams, change them up here and there, and expect to publish that work somewhere else. We are using standard license, so please make sure to not just copy paste it anywhere. If you wish to use it either in your university, your organization for training, please contact Cybervidyapeeth Foundation on mentor@cybervidyapeeth.in. You'll also find the same mail ID on our website and all our Google Forms and info brochures. So please make sure to drop us a mail if you wish to use our content. If need be, we will organize a training for you or send a moderator while you are using our content. With this, we'll start with today's class. I hope you all enjoy this class, and you take something away from this class. Please remember that assembly language takes time to settle in. A lot of the concepts are initially going to sound tricky or counterintuitive, but the more time you give it, the more you start to embrace it. And assembly language is the door to things like reverse engineering, malware analysis, binary exploitation, kernel development and debugging, kernel hacking, 0 day development, like you name it, any of those extremely advanced exploit writing, any of the extremely advanced topics in hacking, and assembly language is 99% of the time the door that you have to truly understand and open before you can walk the path and reach any of those goals. So with this, we'll be starting with today's class. You are allowed to ask questions in the live chat or in the comments. When depends on when you're watching it. This is a live telecast, so after the live is over, if you wish to ask questions, please leave them in the chat. I will personally try to answer as many questions as possible. You can ask them in the live right now, and I will answer them live for all of you. Let's have a great journey together. We'll be starting in about 30 seconds. Welcome everyone to Zero to Hero in Assembly Language, the language of Cyber Defender by Cybervidyapeeth Foundation in association with the Computer Emergency Response Team of India, CERT-In. Today is day 1. Today we'll try to explore the fundamentals that make up this beautiful language and truly start exploring the world of low-level programming. What is assembly language? Well, if we go by the bookish definition, assembly language is the language that is used to feed low-level instructions, or otherwise known as some form of binary coded mnemonics or instructions that can run on a physical hardware. Now you might ask, okay, so it's a language that can run on hardware. What kind of hardware? So primarily, we are going to deal with assembly language that runs on some kind of computational logical units. An example of this would be a standard CPU. Now, CPUs can be again of various different architectures. So architecture can be defined as how the CPU is built from the ground up at the silicon level. Okay. The most popular types of macro architectures, or also known as major architectures, are uh, Intel's x86 and its 64-bit extension, which was made by AMD, which is x86-64, also known as AMD 64 for historical reasons, and the ARM family of architectures and logical units and circuits and all that. So ARM is a whole other world, and then we have x86 and x86-64. We also have MISP. We also have RISC-V. Okay, so these are just some different architecture types or standards, or you can call these the big boys in the game. Okay, so Intel is what we will be focusing on, right? because Intel's processors now power almost every device in the world. Intel is there in the server space, Intel is there in the desktop space, most probably the laptop you are using right now to watch this video on YouTube runs an Intel CPU. If it does not, then it runs an AMD CPU, most probably. And AMD and Intel both run the same architecture under the hood. Now, when I say architecture, I mean the general instructions and the general, circuitry, the very general circuitry is more or less the same. Of course, both have their own proprietary technologies built on top of all this circuitry and these, connections that differ. So, for example, buying an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X and an Intel i7 2700K, the CPUs aren't really gonna look exactly the same when you open them up. Okay, but initially when the design philosophy for these started, on paper they were using the same binary patterns and instructions to actually complete tasks. That's the whole idea, right? So, as I said, I am Xerox. I am a cyber defense researcher here at Cybervidyapeeth Foundation, and I am going to be taking you through this journey of assembly language. Now, it's okay if what I've said until now sounds a little bit complex. It's completely fine. Even when I started years and years ago, assembly looked like a magical black dark arts kind of a thing. It's a little hard to really pin your finger on what you're trying to study because it looks like software, but it is the thing that bridges the gap between software and hardware in many cases. So people have some issues there, but don't worry, we'll take you step by step understanding the basics of the language, how it is architecture dependent, and we'll be dealing with different kinds of manuals. I'll be sharing with you the Intel and the AMD assembly language manuals. I'll be sharing with you the ARM manuals, and you'll learn how to read manuals, how to program, and learn new architectures yourself. And then we'll be giving you guys some interesting uh, you know tidbits towards the end, so you can actually go ahead and go to the internet and actually research obscure architectures and learn their and assembly language yourself, and learn how to program in those assembly languages. Okay, so here at Cyber Vidyapeeth Foundation, we do believe that serving the food to the needy is charity. Okay, but it is of only a high order, not a supreme order or a supreme form. Teaching them how to make food is going to help them much longer. Think of it like this: today I give you some the answers to the next UPSC exam. You will pass the UPSC, but you will never pass in life. You will never be given the good projects or good postings or high intensity jobs because you never cleared UPSC yourself. So you never actually went there, gave the time, studied the amount, and tried to clear it yourself. So you haven't built up those skills to really shine in that job. Or maybe your aptitude was never in UPSC, maybe your aptitude was in pure politics, right? Or in liberal arts or in cyber defense. You do not know. So many times what happens is that we believe here at Cyber Vidyapeeth to simply impart knowledge. Okay, we do not talk about momentary satisfaction. What this means, there's other meaning to this sentence which comes from the word patience. You also be need to patient in our sessions. The sessions can be long. Many times it may feel they are boring. Many times we'll deal with theory and not dive into the practical, and many times we'll do too much practical and not much theory. The way the syllabus is designed is based on the 5E learning model. So you will learn everything, but you have to really take your time and absorb the content being provided to you. So we highly recommend to not skip even a single minute of what I'm talking about, and follow me start to finish, day 1 to day 5, if you truly want to understand the subject in its greatest depth. So to understand a little bit about who we are Cyber Vidyapeeth Foundation. We have trained around 5,000 plus cyber defenders. The number is growing day by day. We have actually trained more than that. We have trained around 3 lakh, but the numbers about one-to-one training, so that's around 5,000. We have reimagined more than 5,000 professionals. We have worked with 500 government and 500 private entities, or a total of roughly 1,000 plus. The numbers about, 1-to-one training, so that's around 5,000. We have reimagined more than 5,000 professionals. We have worked with 500 government and 500 private entities, or a total of roughly 1,000 plus. Our team of hackers, we are a small team of 10 plus hackers with deep expertise. We have roughly 40 patents, in just 10, 12, 13 people, whatever the number may be. And our board members, have together mentored more than 200 PhDs, and a lot of our members also have research work, patents, and PhDs in the field of cyber defense. We currently have one cyber defense product deployed in banks, which is used commercially and has great feedback. We have multiple more incoming. We are working regularly with the corporates as well as the government to change India, to change Bharat, and to make Bharat cyber resilient. Our motto is, igniting young minds with cyber defense. We truly feel cyber defense is such a complex problem that it can develop young minds thinking capabilities, and that is why we are here. That is why we do this. So we do this so that the next generation of Bharat, the next generation of cyber rakshak can be made. Our goal is to create a million cyber rakshak in India by 2026, so that India is ready for the next big cyber war whenever it happens. As a lot of you may know, during the war with Russia and Ukraine, the war brought a huge cyber war. Many countries were supporting Ukraine, many came in favor of Russia. It was an all out cyber battle of prowess, of skill, of knowledge, and of depth of expertise in the field of cyber offense and cyber defense. And it was made possible by a hyper connected world. So, what is the hyper connected world? Take an example. Say you have a smart home. How is your home smart? Through some digital technology, correct? Say your TV has Google in it. You don't need to use a remote anymore. You just say, okay, Google, sitting on your sofa, and your Google goes like, yes. So the question is, was Google listening the entire time? I mean, how do they know when you're speaking, okay, Google? Are they processing all that data? Where is it being stored? You know, it can be as simple as just the temperature of your house. People think that all this data is not important, but when you connect such smart devices with such sensitive data to the internet, or to quote unquote sync services on the internet, because they are hosted on the internet, most sync services, because they have some kind of, either structured or non-structured database systems or data stores, you will start to realize that all your life is now being monitored and the data is being stored somewhere. So usually this data is in very trusty hands, companies, corporates who have massive teams. What happens if they get compromised? An assembly language and good skill in assembly language is all a hacker needs to truly compromise a big company like Google, Microsoft. You might know recently Tata Power got hacked. There are many such attacks happening regularly, and In our research, we have found that most such attackers and adversaries that are targeting large corporations and governments all across the world are weaponizing assembly language and their knowledge of low-level compute systems to truly attack an individual. Because the concept is simple. The lower level you go, the more harder it becomes to detect something. So if you are at the assembly level, you are at the lowest level possible technically in software. And that gives you truly an edge over other attackers or defenders. So as we know, in recent attack of Ukraine and Russia war, we saw attacks happening in Belarus rail because Belarus was supporting Russia, and we also saw jobs being affected. We saw Vietnam, Lithuania, Belgium being affected. We saw Poland being affected. So a lot of things happened during the war, right? And all of them were cyber. We were affected by the attack happening on cyber physical systems, right? You connect a railway switchboard to some form of internet, and if the attacker gets in, he can crash your rail, right? And that would cost you a huge amount of money. So cyber missiles, as we call them here at Cybervidyapeeth, using things like system programming and assembly programming, are extremely hard to detect, stop. Even with modern products such as EDRs and XDRs, they fail to detect anything beyond APT37, which is Advanced Persistent Threat 37. And this is why we truly need to understand the subject before we can really go out there and try to stop it. North Korea is one such entity. I don't like calling them a country yet. So say an entity that have made it kind of their earning source to do ransomware hacks and attacks on non-friendly countries or countries who simply refuse to acknowledge their tyrannical existence. And actually, they make a lot of money doing this, as you can see from the graph right here from chain analysis. You will see that there's massive money to be made if you know how to truly weaponize system programming in assembly language. There are many recent attacks that have been happening, as you can see. For example, there is the Revel ransomware, there is the Raccoon Stealer, there is Belarus rail attack, there is service disruption and disruption of dams and petrol pumps in the Ukraine government. There's the Oil India Limited attack, which is one of India's Navratna being attacked. We also have the Sita malware. We also have US East Coast pipeline being attacked. So there's just bunch of attacks going on, and most of these were engineered at the low level, especially advanced ransomware. When somebody is developing a ransomware, they prefer to do it in assembly because it gives you extreme control over how your malware will work, as we'll soon see. So here's a general idea of the syllabus and the content that we'll be going through in the 5 days. So today is day 1, and we'll be dealing with binary logic, what a radix is, what are switches and transistors, what is a RAM, what does the R in RAM truly mean, multitasking, and some basic history of x86 and ARM. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. So let's go ahead. So we start by understanding what computers really do, and to understand this, let's talk about computer programming for a second. So if I ask you, what do you understand by computer programming? What would you say? Here's what I think. Computer programming is nothing more. It's just a list of steps and tests. Sound weird? Okay, listen to me again. Your mother goes out of your house to buy groceries, to deliver a gift to a relative, deliver another gift to a new married couple who may be friends with your family, comes back home, and while coming back home, make sure to check if you are at your friend's house. If you are at your friend's house, she picks you up from your friend's house and then brings you home. An entire day worth of work done by mothers of this country, right? What if I told you that what I just told you is programming? That what you heard is a list of steps, correct? It's just basic rudimentary instructions. Okay, I need to go there, I need to do that. Each instruction had some kind of test attached to it. For example, if my child is at my, at his or her friend's place, then go and pick him up or her up, otherwise come home directly. So there is a test also happening. So programming is nothing. Even our mothers are programmers. When you think about it, even we are programmers. So I want to introduce this concept to you that everyone you have ever met in your life is a programmer. They just don't know it yet. If you have ever followed even basic instructions like move left, go straight, you are a programmer. That's the essence of programming. So now the question is, how do we understand and make a list that computer understands? So to truly get into the computer side of things, I want to talk about how a human being understands these steps. So as we are talking, let's try to understand how truly respond to humans truly respond to instructions. So think like this. Say I tell you, okay, go from your room and get a glass of water. What would you do? You will get down from your bed, take a right, then take a left, open the door to your room, then take a right again, then go straight, take a right again, go straight, take a left, go straight, take a right, go straight, and then you reach the, wherever your, RO purifier is situated, and then you will take some drinking water. So what you did was you followed a bunch of steps, didn't you? But let's try to understand this a little bit more. What happened with each of these steps? Let's break them down. Say you got down from bed. You had two choices there. You could have not gotten down from bed, correct? But you chose to get down from bed. So you chose, whenever you choose, there are two options. So here I want to introduce a new concept to you called everything is binary in nature. Life, nature, everything is binary in nature. There's always two options, two choices, two paths. Everything is two. It might look like four, but it's actually two. For example, you can go left or right. You can say yes or no. You can slap me or you cannot slap me. You can do this course or you can't do this course. You can work hard or you cannot work hard. You can study hard or you cannot study hard. You can eat food or you can just not, right? So there's always two options in life, and the beautiful part about life is that no matter how basic the question is, there's always two options. It might sound stupid, but should I walk is also a question. Should I breathe or should I not? So when you start thinking about it, you realize it's a very big philosophical question, and the answer is always the same. There's always two options. There's a choice, and your brain made a choice. So of course it is true that when you are in your own house, you have, a mechanical memory kind of a thing going on in your body, also known as a biological memory, and you're having, some muscle memory and, some brain paths predefined in your brain, so you can actually walk till the place where you can get some water, right? And you don't even have to think about it, but your brain is constantly making these micro binary decisions. This is one of the reasons, the human brain is considered to be the world's most powerful computer. It's just a fantastic piece of machinery. Anybody who studied, biology in depth knows just how complex and how beautiful the brain is, and why humans are still trying to run after making an artificial brain, with things like neural networks, but we are still failing. We are still nowhere near to the capability of a real human brain. And it's truly fantastic how everything we do is binary. When you think about it, you can either choose to do it, you can either not. It can either be yes or no, left or right, plus or minus. So that is where the fun begins. Everything is binary in nature, and with that concept I want to take you inside assembly language. So a few points when, say, my mother goes and buys the groceries, right, and gives the gift and picks me up from my friend's place, all of these things are happening in a sequence, which means that a set of instructions must be followed in a certain sequence. Can Should these sequences be linear? Back in the early days, they were. In the old computers, most programming was linear in nature. There was no branching, there was no conditional statements, there was no non-linear logic. It was all linear, straight line, going from top to down. And it is true that, maybe my mother will not follow non-linear logic. But let me tell you a situation. Say my mom is gone to give a gift to her friend who just got, engaged or married or something, or maybe their child got married or engaged or something. So they went and, to give a gift, and they realized halfway through that, oh my God, my son's been at his friend's place for, say, 8 hours. So I need to go pick him first and then come back and do this. So my mom is going to take the gift in her hand, keep it in her purse, run to get me out of the house, send me on the way to the house, then come back again, give the gift, and then do all the other chores and then come back home. Now, do you see what happened? Suddenly, the executioner of the instructions decided to not go down the linear path, change the path. That is where, non-linear concepts such as conditionals and branching comes into play. Again, what are conditionals and branching? If you have never, understood those concepts truly, we will go deeper into them. We'll have entire hour dedicated to branching and conditional statements and low-level programming. So we'll discuss about that. For now, just think of it like this: things, following an instruction, either a human being or a computer, can be linear or non-linear. But if not explicitly told, it is linear. So it goes from top to bottom, checking off every instruction. Okay. Now this checking off person can be a human being or a computer. That doesn't matter. That's all, um, like in metaphorical sense, of course. Here in the third point, we see that when the list of steps or our instructions has been executed or completed, the computer or human stops. Okay. A computer program or a physical grocery list is a list of steps and tests, or a list of instructions and checks, nothing more. Now, I really love this slide and the language used here, and I want you to again and again and again and again read it, okay? Because you might think this is all philosophy, but understanding, to truly make that foundation of assembly, you need to understand what a program is. It is nothing but a step of instructions. And these instructions can be anything. You can even give an instruction to a computer, blow up, it will blow up also. You tell it to cool down, it will cool down also. You tell it to switch off, it switch off. You tell it to turn on, it turns on. You tell it to overload, it overloads. So if you realize how powerful these instructions can be, you can do anything with your computer. If your computer had legs, you could tell it, go buy groceries for me, go order pizza from a pizza store from me, anything. Of course, the computer doesn't have legs, so it cannot do that. Maybe 40-50 years in the future, somebody in Bharat makes such a robot computer, but we don't have that right now, right? But we can still code that logic. The coding is not the problem, it's the hardware in that case, right? So let your logic run free, and you will realize that programming is basically like your logic. It's binary in nature, and it lets you control every single aspect of how a hardware behaves. This talks a little bit about more steps and tests. We can think of a test as sort of a, a either or decision we make dozens or even hundreds of times on the more placid of days, even nearly without thinking about it. And this is talking about the human perspective, right? The human brain is so powerful, it can make micro decisions super duper quickly, right? Pilots make rapid decisions to save, say, passenger's life, because they've been trained in that, and they have muscle memory and brain memory, and now they're able to use that all that computational power that they have in their brain and execute these tasks flawlessly. So these are, tests. Okay. In the abstract, okay, so let's now zoom out. Let's understand in the abstract. A test consists of two parts. First, you take a look at something that can go to one of two ways, which is everything in existence. If you break it down to its most fundamental layer, everything can be one or two things. Then you do one of two things, depending upon what you saw when you took a look. So this is the most abstract logic I can give you when it comes to the binary logic. Computer programs are designed like this. There are places where you store some things, quote unquote, here being pure data, rather than being anything physical, like say groceries, or the gift my mom was about to give. She stored it somewhere, in this case her purse, and the computer program execute. The data is stored in those places will change. Computer programs are not games. Of course, at least not in the sense that a board game is a game. Most of the time, a given program is running all by itself. There is only one player and not two or more. This is extremely important. Games work exceedingly differently in the real world. If you want to imagine it in terms of board games, say chess, instead of two players, it's just one player controlling the entire board. And then you would understand how a computer truly works. Here is a diagram that was inspired from multiple papers and books and then modified to explain some of the concepts we wanted to dive deep into later by our experts. So here you can see an assembly language board game. Now in this board game you will notice something. There is something called a program counter with a number. There are a bunch of program instructions, or you can think of them as the step of work that mom needs to do. So on the left side, move 6 to C, move, compare. All these instructions are basically what mom needs to do. Just right of that, you have some data being stored in the purse. Just right of that, you have some data that can be held in hand, and it's easier to access than purse because my mom apparently has a very bulky hand, so she can carry a lot of things in her left hand. Then we have just below that the stack. Now the stack can be thought of as part of the purse that is used for some specific purpose. So it's part of the purse only, right? My mom's purse, but it can be used for a specific purpose. And then left of that, we have some procedure upkeys. You can think of this as some detailed explanation of procedures for now. So this is how a computer looks like when you zoom in a lot. This is how it runs. You can see there is a counter which counts higher and higher and higher, or maybe lower and lower, depends on how the system is made. And with each count, that count is referenced against an instruction, and then that instruction is executed, and then that either puts a value inside the purse or removes the value from the purse. Depends. Again, it depends on how your system has been designed. So let's understand what code and data mean. Code can be thought of as the steps or instructions, and the numbers in the cubby holes. So what are cubby holes? You can think of these boxes right here as cubby holes, okay, or eggshell holes, or you can also think of my mom's purse having like say 100 different chain, as a lot of you know um, big good purses do, for women. So you'll see a lot of different chains there. So imagine each chain being one hole where you can put something, and each of these holes can contain numbers, and these numbers are called data, right? And the instructions are called code, and the cubby holes themselves are called storage. Simple, right? Now you can realize and connect to the real world and try to understand what's going on. The code includes steps that place data into storage, move instructions. So if you go back, you saw some move 6 to C instructions happening, right? You also see that steps that alter data already in storage, increment or decrement instructions, and add instructions. So if I go back again, you will see at 0048 an increment B instruction, and at 0049 you will see decrement C instruction. So these are again instructions, okay, that are extremely important to understand. Again, we'll be going to into each instruction one by one slowly and a little later, but just to give you an idea of how something increases or decreases. So say I want 2 coins in my mom's purse to become 3 coins. That's called increment. If I want to decrement the number of coins by say 1, then they become 1 coin, and so I remove 1 coin, from the purse cubby hole. Then that called decrement. If I want to take 2 different cubby holes, take coin 1 from both of them and add them together and put them back into the original cubby hole, then that's called the add instruction. So let's talk about addresses. We have talked about storage, and here the concept of memory comes into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to not go into addresses now. Instead, I want to discuss registers, not even registers, memory first. So what is memory? You can think of it like this. Memory is remembering. That's it. Your brain remembers all the time, doesn't it? Don't forget your brain. It's all biology and complex science. Think like this. There is a switch in your room. It's mechanical in nature. You turn on the switch, light bulb turns on. It stays on. It does not switch off. This is a form of rudimentary mechanical memory. If you switch off the light, it stays off. So the switch has some form of memory built in, right? So it can remember the last command its alien overlords gave it, correct? This is a very important concept to understand, that memory can be mechanical also, not just digital or biological. And we have actually known this for eons, right? That's the whole idea of a physical light switch. It remembers that you turned on the light, so the voltage keeps going and the light stays on. In computers though, memory looks a little different. Memory looks exactly as you can see in front of you right now. There's a bunch of things like stack, unused space, dynamic data, also known as heap storage. There's some static data, there's some literals, there's instructions, there's a special read-only no execute section towards the end where some basic repair stuff and firmware code is stored. So there's a lot of different things inside a computer's memory, and they're not as simple as just turning the switch on, but you would be very wrong if you think they're any different. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you all that a memory inside a computer is actually basically a switch, or a few billion of them. How it works is, imagine a switch. Okay, you turn it on, light bulb turns on. Simple switch. Imagine you shrink it to the millionth of its size. You shrink it down. Now imagine you put a billion such mini switches in a line together. Then you will create patterns of on or off switches through these billions and billions of mini switches. And you already understand how memory works. I just told you how modern memory functions. Of course, memory layouts are a much more complex concept, and memory models also need to be looked into. But generally speaking, at the very bare bones level, if you want to understand how computer memory works, this is exactly how they work. Imagine a physical switch shrink down to the microscopic level, then put a billion of them together, and boom, you have a RAM stick, right? You go out there and remember, you buy RAM, random access memory. So that is basically how RAM were designed in the old days. Of course, RAMs have gotten much more complex in the past few days. Now, some other things to note here is that what does the word random means in random access memory, right? I was talking about this term called RAM, right? What is RAM? So random doesn't mean like chaos, right? A lot of people think if you go by the dictionary, random means unpredictability, chaos. It's quite the opposite here. In computers, random means at a random. Now, this is a term you might have heard in probability quite a lot. Think of it like this. You have a library of books. You want to go inside the library and pick up Harry Potter, first book. Simple, right? You walk into the second floor, you pick out the book, you come back outside the library, you sit on the bench and you start reading the book. That is when you realize, oh my god, I was supposed to bring six more books because there's like seven, eight books in the series of Harry Potter, right? So you decide, I need to go back again. So you get up again, take a left, walk for say 5 to 7 steps, take a left again, you see the door to the library. You enter the door, you show your library card, you walk towards the stairs, you take a right, you go up the stairs, you take a right, you take a left, you take a right, you take a left, you waste so much energy. Then you go to that shelf again on the library and pick up book number 2. Then you go down again and you finish book number 2 also. You are a very fast reader, very professional reader. Or maybe this is your millionth time reading Harry Potter and you're just good at it. Your neural network of your brain can read that fast. Harry Potter, right? So what's going on? You're being very inefficient. Wouldn't it be better if I just went together and got like 4 books at once? Kept one book on the side table, kept one on my lap, one opened and reading, and one on the bench on the side. Wouldn't this make more sense? Wouldn't I be saving a lot of energy and time this way? In the long term, I won't have to walk every single time to get every single book. Exactly. You would be. You would be saving so much time. And that is where the concept of how we access the RAM, and that is at random, comes into play. So the storage inside a RAM chip happens like so. The CPU, or the true alien overlord that runs your computer, or technically is your computer, goes inside the RAM to store the number 0. And it looks for the first empty space at random, stores 0, remembers the address where it stored 0, and goes away. Then it gets 5, so it comes back into the RAM, finds the empty space at random, stores it, goes away. At random is the real logic behind a RAM chip. Not random means complete unpredictability. And do not think that CPU doesn't know where to go and where to pick and that it's truly random. It's actually pseudo random. It's not 100% random. Nothing in this world is truly random. Okay, that is something that scientists have said for decades. And you will find such references even in Mahabharata, that nothing is truly random in life. Everything has a pattern if you know where to look. So because everything has a pattern means even your CPU has some form of pattern of where to pick data and where to store data inside your RAM. Now RAMs are a very special concept which I'll cover in day 2. For now, just think of RAMs as, imagine a egg cart, right, with a bunch of egg holes in it. Imagine a billion of empty egg carts. Then shrink them down to the size of your hand and you have a RAM chip. That's how I want you to imagine RAM for now. Okay. So because each of those holes can store something, this something is what will help you and truly understand how to manipulate data later down the course. Now each of these egg holes on this massively large egg cubby hole, fiesta or whatever you want to call it, has an address, just like you have an address at your house, right? Delhi something something 1. That's an address. Just like that, each hole has an address. And each hole is special because it has some kind of, each cubby hole is special because it has some kind of black magic silicon property. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna go too deep into how RAM works because that is a very deep engineering topic, how to make RAMs. But there is some, dark black magic engineering going on. And each of these cubby holes can store some certain amount of voltage. The presence of voltage means the binary number 1, and the absence of said voltage means binary number 0. Now imagine that for to have patterns of on off or 10 10 10 inside a billion long cubby hole RAM chip, when you're looking at it from a microscope, electron microscope, and you realize, okay, wow, there's a pattern. This is what your CPU sees. There's always a pattern, okay, in these cells, and the voltage that you see in these cubby holes is actually predefined. So it can be 5 volt, 15 volt, 25 volt, doesn't matter, depends on the creator of RAM. But once it is predefined, it stays like that, so that all systems can put that much voltage, raise that hole to that voltage, get the number 1 out of that voltage, and enjoy making binary patterns such as 0 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 1. That's just an example. Now, addresses again are going to be a concept. I go a little deeper later towards day 2. So for now, just read what's on your screen, and if you do not understand, feel free to ask questions in the chat box. Registers are like the pocket. So when I am going to, read Harry Potter from a library, and I bring all the books and I sit outside the library to read Harry Potter, I keep a book in my pocket. It's a small book. It's a mass market paperback. It's a small book, so I keep it in my shirt pocket, and I'm able to access it or take it out very very quickly. That is an example of a register. A register is a type of super fast memory built inside the CPU. Each has a different purpose, as you can see from the description. Again, the purpose I will go each and every one turn by turn in day 2. For now, you can just look at this table and understand that, okay, these are some of the general purpose or common registers. There are more general purpose registers. Note, we'll be going into them later. The memory model you guys have already looked at. So now let's look into some important points about assembly language. The individual steps that we take in assembly are usually very simple, very basic, very binary in nature. Because assembly has such basic step system, you have to tell it everything, because computers are dumb. They have no IQ. They can't make decisions on their own unless you develop a neural network. And even a neural network, no matter how complex, it is actually executing only simple instructions down the line. Okay. It takes a lot of steps to do anything useful. Yeah, that is true. The same Python program needs to be written in 20, 25 lines in assembly, and maybe 10 or 12 in C and C++ or Java. But in Python it's 1 line or maybe 2 lines, right? So assembly language usually takes you a lot more lines to do something, so it takes time. The key to assembly is to understanding memory addresses. I could not agree with this sentence more. We will truly dive deep into memory addressing, and we'll discuss a lot about memory addressing. So here's today's task, and what I'm going to do is every day I am going to give a task with the PPT. Today's task is understanding two very simple concepts. One, what are number bases? Two, how to convert from binary to octal, octal to binary, octal to decimal, decimal to hexadecimal or binary, and the arithmetic operation of addition and subtraction. So this is the part that I'm not going to teach. I'm just going to quickly put the slide on your screen so you can actually read through what's written on the slide. Go out, do your own research, come back tomorrow learning this concept. Now, octal and binaries are very simple to understand. You will find thousands of resources online explaining what these number bases are and how to convert them. So I am not going too deep into them. You can pause the video right now and read through this slide. Some points to note is that x86, right, the architecture made by Intel, takes its name from the progression of the early Intel chips such as 8086, 8186, 80286. So x86, so the x value used to be some number and then there used to be 86. This is how Intel used to develop their processors back in the day, hence the name. Initially we had very small architecture, and then we went to 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and then we had 64-bit. Intel has always kept backwards compatibility, so their current 64-bit systems can actually run 16-bit or 32-bit code. Initially, Intel wanted to abandon x86 when switching to 64-bit. That was Itanium, often known as IA64 or Intel Architecture 64-bit. This was a bad decision on Intel's part because the world had already deployed 32-bit systems in massive numbers. Because of this, the adoption for Itanium processors was very slow. So Intel decided to license the 64-bit extensions from AMD, and that is what you see in today's computers, right? Both Intel and AMD processors. You might sometimes see 64-bit called as AMD 64. This is for historical purposes in many Linux and Microsoft Windows servers. So here's an example of what we are going to learn. This is a simple C program, right? Include standard io.h, a simple main function and main. Inside the function, we have a printf function call where we are printing hello world and a new line, and then we are returning 0 cross 1 2 3 4, which is a hexadecimal value we are returning. This can be decompiled to this. Again, you don't have to be scared. This is assembly language. Don't worry, we'll go deeper. This can also be, made to look like this. This also is equivalent to this. These assembly instructions can also look like this. And finally, it all comes down to this. So these are actually the major instructions that are printing hello world to your screen when you make the C program. So that C program has been disassembled or decompiled to show you these assembly outputs on different kind of operating systems such as Windows Server, Linux, Mac, and BSD. Just to give you some example, this is the instruction frequency graph from a research done a few years back, which shows you which are the different instructions used the most. And I'm going to teach you your first instruction in assembly right now, which is the NOP instruction, which uses roughly 6% of all instructions used in the world. NOP means no operation. There you go, you learned it. It's a very simple assembly instruction. It means do nothing. That's it. It does absolutely nothing. There you go. You just learned your first assembly instruction. So simple, right? Assembly is not really that hard if you try to truly understand what's going on. There's some more information here about registers, which I'm not going to go into today. That's for day 2. Here's a simple example of how a register looks like. I'm going to just exit out of my sharing so that you can see my screen properly. There you go. You can see that the red ones are 64-bit registers, yellow ones are 32-bit, and green ones are 16-bit. Here you can see that there is the R0 register, R0D register, R0W register, R0B register, and the AH register. Now a lot of you might be thinking, okay, what are these registers, sir? I don't understand, like what is going on here, like what are all these registers? No, I don't understand. I will not, I forgive you. So let's understand from the very basics. How did the registers come into play? So Intel first made a 8-bit register in the Intel series 8008. In here, a register had 8 bits labeled 0 to 7, and it was called the A register. So after the 8-bit microprocessor, which was 8008, we had the 16-bit 8086. The 16-bit 8086 was very infamous. It's still deployed in many old and prestigious institutions such as the IITs and the NITs. You'll still find it in a lot of different university laboratories to teach students about microprocessors, and their evolution till today. If you have to be a collector, you can actually still find a lot of 8086, roaming around the second-hand market as well, maybe being sold by a university or just simply not working. So you can always get your hands on an 8086 even till today. As you can see inside a 16-bit 8086, this is how the registers were. There were in total 16 bits. What does that mean? That means that we were still going from 0 to 7, right? So the old A register, like here, but we were also going from 0 to 15, right? Which is in total 16 bits. So 0 to 7 is called AL or A low, 7 to 15 is called AH or A high, and AX stands for A extended. Taking this up a notch, we have a 32-bit register inside the 8386, which was another infamous microprocessor by Intel. Here we can see that a new entity called EAX has been introduced, and this is actually a very common register. Those who follow binary hacking and or buffer overflows and pawn challenges in capture the flag tournaments all across the world, either online or on site, such as the Besides challenge, the OWASP challenge, and a few other CTFs all around the world, such as Pico CTF. You might know about the EAX register. You might even have played with the EAX register. The EAX register is infamous and very popular. So I'm actually showing you how the term EAX came to be. You will still see exploits written that try to use EAX register. So even after such a long time, we are now getting into a territory where it's not just history, it's practical knowledge, and EAX is one such register. So as the 32-bit register came into being, we could store quite a lot of information inside a register. Now registers started being used for more than just storing some small patterns, from entire passwords and secure strings to information that CPU might need instantaneously. Because the registers are physically located on the CPU die, it's easier to access them. This makes a register so much more faster than, say, cache memory or RAM or random access memory, or even secondary storage, things such as solid state drives or hard disk drives, HDDs, or even floppy disks or CDs and DVDs. Much faster. Registers are usually made of special substances, which again is a black magic territory of actual physical engineering, which we are not going into. And that, plus being so close to the CPU, allows them to truly extract that physical distance to its fullest. Moving on, we can also see that in the next evolution we have the 64-bit AMD Opteron, and these 64-bit extensions were actually made by AMD first and then licensed by Intel. And as you can see here, the Intel Pentium 4 started using another naming scheme. Good job, Intel, right? The Intel naming scheme is now R0, R0D, R0W, R0B. So what exactly is going on here? So the concept is actually pretty simple. It's R0D means R0 double word, R0B means R0 byte. So we know that a byte is 8 bits, right? So R0 byte means register 0 with 1 byte of information. So that is 0 to 7. Then if you say R0W, which means R0 word, that means 16 bits or a word. Okay. Then if you say R0D means R0 register, but a double word. So a double word is basically 16 into 2, which is 32 bits. And then if you have R0 simply, then that just means 64 bits. So this is actually a naming scheme used in computers quite a lot, and you might have heard about it, that a bit is the indivisible atom of information, right? One bit. When you put 8 bits together, you get a byte. Hence the word byte right here with R0, because we have 8 bits 0 to 7. Then we go one step further and we use the terminology word, W-O-R-D, word. Word means 16 bits or 2 bytes, if you think about it. Double word is basically just a word times 2. You can also think of this as 4 bytes. Then you have 64 bits, R0, which is also like a quad word, if you think about it. Now, with all this information, I also want to introduce another term that is less used in the field, and that is register conventions. So a lot of people, when they jump into assembly language, might not have that deep of an information about assembly or the logic or how to code in assembly, but they definitely always look into the different kinds of registers that exist inside the Intel manual. So these are some common ones I've picked out here. We have the RSI, also known as the source index for string operations, the RDI, which is the destination index pointer for string operations, the RSP, which is the stack top pointer, the RBP, which is the stack frame base pointer, the RIP, which is the pointer to the next instruction to execute. This is also called as the instruction pointer. Now, for the most part, RSI, RDI, I mean, these can be used for pretty much anything. You don't just have to use them for, source and destination for a string operation. You can actually model these to work with any kind of purpose. Though Intel claims they have been optimized for string operations, so you should only use them for string operations. But you'll see that in assembly, we can actually manipulate these to do other things as well. So these are some registers. So just like, RAX, by the way, note the term RAX. RAX is really wide AX. I know, again, Intel is not really good with the naming thing, as you can clearly see here, but it's what we have, it's what we got to work with. So here's, before we move towards the end of today's, the last mile of today's class, I want to go and, just take you through a basic hello world program, and I'm not actually going to code it through today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to code it and compile it and show it to you in the next class. But in this class, I'm going to show you the code. So if you wish to pause the video here, type the code out yourself and try to compile it, you can do that. So here is how to assemble an assembly language program with the NASM assembler, the net-wide assembler, to 32-bit or 64-bit ELF binary without libc library. So if you don't understand what is the difference between with libc and without libc, the with libc part is an advanced part. So here you will see with libc. This requires a little bit more in-depth knowledge about what exactly libc is. So instead of doing this, I highly recommend you do this program, because this doesn't require any dependencies. It will easily compile, so it's easy to deal with. Here's how to assemble and link, you basically do nasm-f elf32-o, the name of the file .o, space name of the file .asm, right? Then there is the template code for hello world, and you can see this code right here, right? We're also calling the int xath call right here, which is the system call for controlled execution. And we can see that, here we are basically moving some values here and there, and we are printing the string hello. And hello is basically just a db value here down here in the data section, which is equivalent to a static value hello world, which is nothing but a string or a string of characters, as it's more appropriately called in assembly. So again, this code you don't have to understand, you have to type it out and you have to try to assemble and link it. The commands to assemble and link it are nasm commands that are given here in each file, as you can clearly see from the screenshots. And after that, the ld command can be used on your Linux machine or your Mac machine or your BSD machine, to go ahead and actually link them up. When you link your files, you will get a ELF binary, or a executable and linkable format binary, and that is the binary file that will run on your system. Okay, so I expect this to be done by all of you. And what I'll do is, in the next class, first thing before starting tomorrow's class, I will show you how these two programs look like when they're executed, and some basic properties of them inside a Linux machine. Okay, here's with libc for those who are interested and want to get ahead of their peers. Here's an example of how to compile and link with libc for 32-bit and 64-bit on a modern Linux, BSD, Mac or Windows system. Just have a look. Now again, some people might point out, okay, this is Linux assembly, this is not Windows assembly. Windows assembly might be a little different. I will agree with you. I will even go as far as to say that yes, you are right, Windows assembly is a little bit different, but don't worry, we'll touch some basic ideas about Windows assembly as well, so that you are not left alone if in case you want to go in for some research with the Windows side as well. Though the Windows world is really that forgiving when you try to understand its fundamentals. So now let's talk about ARM, because we've talked a lot about x86. So I want to cover just a little bit about ARM. Why and what is ARM? So it is one of the most widely used CPU architectures worldwide. It brings up a point that, ARM is designed for, okay, so you guys need to know this, that, ARM is a separate architecture from what we've been studying till now, which is x86. And ARM has been basically designed from ground up to run on low power systems. So it runs on systems where the power requirements are less, the resource output is supposed to be less. So for example, I want you to imagine a mobile device. Does a mobile device need the power of a Alienware gaming PC by Dell? No, it doesn't, right? It doesn't need to take 1200 watts of electricity to start up. No, it does not. Your phone has a 5000 milliamp hour battery and it can survive the entire day. It is able to do such using an ARM processor made by either Qualcomm, MediaTek, Google. Google has their Tensor line of chips now. You also have Samsung's Exynos. So there's a lot. You have India's Shakti. So you have multiple lines of processors, correct? And these processors are usually based on ARM architecture. Of course, you can have other architectures. You can create your own completely new architectures. It's up to you. But I'm just telling you that ARM is low powered, you know simple instruction set based kind of a architecture. That's all I'll say about it for now. This is a basic design of how the internals of an ARM processor looks like. Intel's is a CISC, as you can see. It's a complex instruction set computing. Okay. Then you have RISC. So RISC is reduced instruction set computing. It basically has more general purpose registers and has less instruction sets. So reduced instruction set computing has gotten a lot more popular because it's usually able to deal with day-to-day tasks of a general computer user a little bit more. A great example of ARM and RISC being used for insane levels of optimization is the new line of MacBooks, which are the M series of MacBooks, M1, M1 Pro, M2, M2 Pro, all that stuff that Apple has been coming out with. They are great examples of tight integration with the ARM architecture and optimization using, RISC instruction set. So here's a simple diagram showing you a 8086 Intel processor. Again, not going too deep into this diagram or the things written here about it. This is just for your information. You can consider this trivia information, things you need to know. Okay, we will going much deeper soon from day 2, of course. So as we go deeper and deeper and deeper and try to understand each and every part one by one, I expect you all to, remember these trivia information. So you can pause the video now, you can have a look and then play the video again. So here's some other basic information. You can see some code being compiled to x86 assembly and some basic assembly language instructions and their binary or machine language or raw bits bit pattern, not bits, bit patterns that are created as well here. Okay, so we can see two scenarios here. One is C code to assembly language, and then we have even lower level, which is assembly language to binary language or machine language. Okay, a lot of people have this confusion that assembly language is machine language, which is wrong. It is not. A lot of other people think that the way languages such as Oracle's Java works is by converting its code into machine language, which is completely wrong. That's not at all how Java works. Java never touches the machine code. What it does is it converts it into something called the Java bytecode. And the bytecode is like an intermediary and proprietary language written by Oracle, which is close to machine code and can run on the Java virtual machine, JVM. And the Java virtual machine actually executes and converts it into machine language instructions. So your binary, Java binary, technically speaking, is only platform independent where Java is installed. If Java is not supported, say you created your own operating system and Java is not supported on that operating system, Java will not work there. Though, if your architecture is supported, then a bare metal languages like Rust or Golang or C or D programming language, these languages might work. So here I have a virtual machine, which is basically a Remnux instance. For those who do not know what Remnux is, it is a digital forensics pre-built Linux virtual machine platform, which allows you to do malware analysis, testing of binary files, among a lot of other things such as digital forensics and extraction. And it comes pre-installed with a lot of tools to help you do all of this. Right now, it is connected to the internet, but usually, or in most cases by default, it will be disconnected from the internet because of its default configuration. I'm using VirtualBox software, and to be very specific, I am using the Oracle's VM VirtualBox 7.0, this exact version running on the Qt5 15.do graphical framework in a Windows 11 completely updated environment. So that should give you an idea about what kind of setup I'm running. Moving forward, let me show you all the files that are currently in my working directory. Here, the first file that I want to look at is hello.asm. Now, inside hello.asm, we will see some interesting lines of code. So before we have a look at them, let me add some of that. Perfect. So here we see a call, which is basically global, then a space, then underscore start. Now I've written some comments here for all of you to have a basic idea of what is going on. Okay, again, this code will be shared to everyone who registers, so you will have access to this one way or the other, so you don't need to worry. Just make sure that before attending this course, either on YouTube or any other platform, please register in the Google form that is being shared. If you don't register, it makes it harder for us to track who is actively following the course. So as you can see right here, this exports the start label and makes an entry point to the programming. So global start is basically like a message to the computer or to the CPU that, hey, my program is starting right here. Then you have basically a section, and the section is called dot text. Now this is a little early to introduce, but text is basically the section where your code is stored inside the RAM. We will look at the test section in a little bit more detail pretty soon when we discuss memory in more detail. Here you can see that the start section starts, technically speaking, here. Here, these are just comments, okay? So for those confused, these 3 lines and these 3 lines here, which have code wrapped in them and write one message length wrapped in them. These both are basically what we call comments. So we have a few instructions here. I will not go too deep into these instructions and what they're doing right now. If you want to understand just on a very high level what the move instruction is doing, it's taking the number 1 and it's putting it inside the RAX register. That is all it's doing. Okay. And that's all I'm going to explain about move right now. Let's not dive too much into move right now. We'll come back to move. And after all this code, we have a another section, called data or data section. Inside data section, we have two kind of global values defined, one called message and one called length. Both of these are being used for those with keen eyes in the code section or the text section. Here, you with move, okay, right here. Again, you can already see the comments that I've written, so I think you can guess a little bit of what's going on here, and that is good. You should guess, but don't worry. Even if you don't understand any of the code in front of you right now, that's fine. This is just your first foray into assembly. Take a deep breath, take a little bit time, and you'll understand everything. So here we can see that we have a db value, hello string, which is nothing but a string of characters, and we are also giving, can somebody guess what this is? You know what, I'm not going to explain this. I want this in the comment section, people explaining me that after db and the string of characters, after the comma, what exactly is shown here. And this is actually very easy, the hint is already there in this file. Okay. Then you have length, which is using a simple technique and calculating the length of the message right here. Then both of these things, the message itself and the length, are somehow being used in the program. Okay, so pretty simple code, nothing very fancy right here. Okay, so we exit that program, and now what we do is we try to assemble or compile that program or interpret that program in some way or another. So hello.asm is the file I want to work with, and the compiler that I want to use is called NASM, or the Net-Wide Assembler. To use the Net-Wide Assembler, what we're going to do is type NASM dash dash help. This will provide us with a bunch of different options of how to use NASM. So in here you will see that there's multiple different kinds of uh, quite a lot of complex things you can set here. So I am just going to set NASM dash F, I think it is L64. Now I could be wrong, but you know what, let's go with that. Let's check if I remember the flags correctly. Dash O for hello, 2 dot O, and then I want to load hello.asm file. It looks like I remember. And if you see, if I print that hello 2.o, an object file has been created. If I try to cat the file, right, hello 2.o, this is basically the data stored inside the object file. Okay, looks very weird, right? A lot of unprintable things inside the file. If I run the file command on hello 2.0, it tells me that it's an ELF or executable and linkable format. It's 64-bit in nature and it's relocatable. It's based for the x86-64 architecture and it's not stripped. So what this means is that there's still some programmer friendly debugging information available inside the file. Apparently, I say apparently because the amount of information is actually very less, as we'll soon see. Now, you might notice that there's another file right here called hello.c, and those who have coded in the C programming language should be pretty, well versed with this. So let me open this file quickly. And this is the code inside the file. It's basically an include statement with a void main and a printf statement and a return statement. So this is literally the smallest program I could write in a C programming language. It's a simple program and it's a traditional program used to teach students C language around the world, even in the world's best universities till today. So this program again has been compiled through very simple means. I've just used gcc-o to specify the output file and I've decided to call it hello c2 and I'm providing the file hello.c and it gives me some warnings which I ignore and then I get hello c2 as a file here. So you can see that I have hello 2.0 and hello 2.c. So hello 2.c is actually a full-fledged binary, meaning that it will run. So I can do /hello underscore c underscore 2 and we can see that we actually get execution. It runs, right? But if I try to run hello 2.0, it gives me permission denied, but even if I give it permission, it's not going to work. It's just going to error out because it's an object file. It's not a binary. It isn't something that will directly run. To make it quote unquote runnable on this x86-64 based system, I need to run the ld command. I need to give the name of the binary. So I'm going to give hello asm bin and the name of the file, which is hello2.o. Now you will see that there is hello asm bin as well. So if I do hello asm bin and I run it again, we get the same output, hello world. So if the output is same, everything is same, why am I writing one thing in assembly and one thing in C and compiling it from scratch and showing it to you? The reason is simple. We'll do a simple test right now. So I'm going to do time. I'm going to use the time command in Linux and I'm going to run the hello underscore asm underscore bin. And this is the time it takes to run the assembly language binary. And this is the time it takes to run the C language binary. Let me do that once more. Okay, so you can clearly see the time it takes, and that looks actually weird. That shouldn't be happening. Maybe I messed up somewhere. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I definitely messed up somewhere. So if we see hello.bin is basically assembly and then we have C2. Yeah, this looks fine. I think the double compilation caused some issues in the backend. So hello.bin has been compiled using assembly language directly, and hello C2 was compiled using C language. Okay, so hello.bin was compiled using assembly. So you notice that the output is exactly the same, right? I mean, C is technically a little bit different. I mean, there is a exclamation mark. You could argue that I need to put an exclamation mark here, but yeah, even with the exclamation mark, I've done this test hundreds of times and even ARM and other architectures like RISC-V. What you will see is that always assembly language is faster. You can see here the time 0.001 seconds and 0.002 seconds. So the real execution that happens, that is really, really, there's a very small difference, but that difference adds up when you're working with, massive programs written in assembly or C. That difference really adds up. So let me show you why. Okay, if I do file hello asm binary and file hello c2, Can you see the difference? Let me do this again. So can you see the difference between the two files? The assembly language binary has much less information being printed out by the file command in Linux than the C language binary. What is going on? It looks like C has put in a lot more information. This is telling me, okay, this is a statistically linked binary, yada yada yada. It has a build ID. It doesn't have a build ID. This is telling me that this is dynamically linked, has a SHA-1 build ID for some reason, was made for GNU Linux 3.2.0 or above. It has not been stripped of the debug information. Clearly, right? I mean, with this much information, it's a LSB shared object. It's an ELF 64-bit. So there's quite a lot of information there, but notice how the assembly language binary is really lightweight. I'll use another command. I'll use a command called objdump or object dump. Okay, this is a very nice command to disassemble Linux binaries, and it displays information from object files and binaries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do obj dump dash capital M, and I'm going to pass in the Intel parameter. What this does is basically tells object dump that I want to use the Intel syntax, which is the syntax we'll primarily be focusing on throughout our zero to hero assembly language course. So let's try to stick with the Intel syntax and to understand Intel syntax properly first. I'm not really going into the war of which syntax is better. I think both syntaxes of ARM and Intel have their place. Not ARM, sorry. ARM also has a different syntax. I mean the AMD syntax and the Intel syntax. Uh, both syntaxes have a place in the world. Okay, both are interesting and useful and optimizable for different kind of tasks. So I really think it's about the programmer rather than the way you write the program. Now we'll use the dash D to decompile the program, and I'm going to put in hello ASM binary here. And this is the output I get when I try to decompile the assembly language binary. You see, very simple. These are the assembly language instructions right here, right here, right here. You know, so nothing very fancy here. If you look now, let me make this a little bit more complex. I'll run the same thing, but I'll put hello C2, and I'll pipe the output to the less command, which lets me see a little of the output once by one, because I know there's going to be a lot of output. And here's the file created by the C programming language. Okay, I repeat, here's the program created by the C programming language. Now just look at the insane amount of information. I mean, are you kidding with me? Look at the amount of code inside here, and tell me this is shorter than what you just saw in the raw assembly. I mean, there's just bunch and bunch of lines and informations and register preparations and God knows what else going on here. So this is you know required also in some cases, in some cases it's not. See, this is why assembly language programmers are few and far between, because assembly language is first of all so hard to do, because you need to write so much code for it, but it ends up resulting in a binary that's, if you know your work, is extremely, and I mean extremely, optimized for the task it was designed. It's fast, as you saw the time, the time command, through the time command. It's fast in the real world, and as those smaller time units add up, you realize for something like the Linux kernel, if you wrote the Linux kernel for x86 64 in assembly, it would probably take you years, like 6 maybe 7 years. But the kernel that will be built in x86 64 with all the drivers and everything in assembly, that hypothetical Linux kernel will be many more times memory efficient and many more times just plain better than the one written in the C language. But that requires insane amount of engineering and hard work. And that is a feat that nobody has still taken up, right? So assembly language provides you a control that nobody else does. This is just one of the biggest reasons we try to study assembly. And mark my words, those who master assembly, they will truly be able to master the field of cyber defense engineering. So that was a very simple example of execution of a very simple program. So before we end today's class, I would like to remind you that we are launching a program with Vinoba Bhave University Hazaribagh, and this program will be launched in association with the Ministry of Education, Government of Jharkhand. It's a postgraduate diploma in cyber defense. It's the first of its kind in the whole world that teaches rigorous cyber defense, offensive and defensive scenarios. You can join the Telegram by scanning this QR code, apply now by scanning the other QR code, or select the final QR code through your phone or other scanning device to connect to us. You can also see our phone number and our socials down there. So if you wish to contact us further about this prestigious qualification in the field of cyber defense, we will be more than happy to assist you in this journey. Please note, postgraduate diploma in cyber defense is also referred to as Cyber Rakshak Advance. Dhanyavad. Let us join hands together and make India truly a cyber resilient Bharat. Jai Hind. That is it for today's students. I hope you enjoyed day one of CERT-In session on Zero to Hero on assembly language, the language of Cyber Defender. And you've had a great experience with day one. You've learned something and you're ready to jump in for day two tomorrow with us. Hope to see you all there sharp at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time tomorrow evening. Once again, Dhanyavad and Jai Hind.